What's your worst college memory? Committing to giving my institution $80K at the age of 17. What about the other 3 years? That seems like a lot of money, but when you graduate the interest will make it even bigger. I was passing a class with an A, and submitted an essay at the end of the semester. My final grade ended up being AC because apparently the paper was never received. I contacted the instructor through 2 means of contact, and heard nothing back. I didn't find out until next year that she retired. I still don't know what the hell happened. Now that really sucks. Wow, that's almost the exact same thing that happened to me, except the professor was fired. All they had on record was my midterm and final scores, so they couldn't change it. Wow. Hope you went to student affairs and demand the paper be retrograded by someone to get that grade up. Some fool hitting me in the face with a sword and breaking my glasses. LARPing or you shall not pass. Senior design project with a group of 4. We turned the project in, and a few days later the professor says he has some concerns over what we submitted and needs to see us right away. Everyone freaks out, so we meet with him this year. Turned out it was just a matter of reorganizing some of the data into different sections of the report. Engineering project. Literally took 1/2 hour to change and he was happy. Dope made it sound like he was rejecting our submission and was going to give us an incomplete for the class unless we immediately took action. Credit card bouncing because I was going out to the bar almost every night to self-medicate that. Everyone I started with had graduated the year or 2 before, and recognizing I was probably going to fail classes again. After having had undiagnosed depression and then culture shock going from a smallish 100s high school to a big 35K state university, getting a 0.5 GPA my first semester, around 1.2 the second, and then getting an academic suspension kicking me out of university for good. Worse, in an effort to clean up my clusterfuck of a transcript, I individually met with those professors still in town after my final semester and groveled to them to sign off on paperwork that would mark my class with them N complete rather than F. I ended up getting a couple to agree. One pompous chemistry professor to tell me, civilly, to fuck off, and a couple others who were out of town and not worth the effort to track down. Let alone how bad I felt about wanting to end the whole ordeal. Bad times. Friend of mine got way too drunk and violent. Started fighting with men and women. He wouldn't stop. He hit a few of them. After a while of struggling to settle him down, he started hitting me as well. I punched him 3 times and knocked him out. I felt horrible, but I didn't know what else to do. Waiting the last minute to write my final for an English course. My PC shorted out in a storm. The used laptop I bought online had a keystroke virus and I ended up losing some work. I decided to make coffee, but I made it so strong it looked like sludge. My dumbass drinks it and I have a panic attack from the caffeine. I'm so messed up. My husband got married in college, gave me cold meds to calm down. I slept and was able to hand in my paper. Got an A. Greater than. I have a panic attack from the caffeine. Coffee-induced panic attacks are no joke. I remember losing the thumb drive and the computer memory that contained a final project I was supposed to work on once a week for the whole semester the night before it was due. My ass was up until about 6 a.m. Buzzed on Monster and caffeine jelly beans. Got a B. Fuck it. Good enough. I went back to college in my mid-30s after being discharged from the army. I'm married and at the time my wife was expecting our first child. I spent a majority of my military career as a medic in the infantry, so I pretty much only ever worked with other men. So I never really had any idea whether or not women found me attractive. That sort of changed when I got to college. I just assumed that being as old as I was, none of the kids I was in class with would think of me as anything other than that quiet old dude with really good posture and a crappy haircut. More than one girl who were all 10 or more years younger than me, tried to ask me out. Luckily, just saying that I was a happily married man with a baby on the way was enough to end it then and there. I'm not gonna lie though, because I was super flattered and it really made my day to have some cute 22-year-old ask me out for coffee. But one turned into a real stalker type situation that I was fortunate enough to get taken care of without too much getting to my wife. She knew there was an issue, but she didn't need to stress herself out over it. I, on the other hand, had to spend way too much time with campus police and student counselors. And I really felt bad for the girl because it was clear that she had some serious mental health issues. I graduated about 7 years ago and never had any problems since. But for a little more than a semester things were pretty weird. Wow, sounds like a real psycho. Did she try to put some fake charges on you for rejecting her? I've seen it happen before. Getting kicked out of law school. If you don't mind me asking, what was the scenario leading up to this? I was in my second year, and really struggling with calculus. Seriously struggling. I had called my parents that afternoon in tears telling them to prepare for me to fail. I was a straight A student, so this was really uncharted territory. At my mother's suggestion, I took a break. That night, after our sorority meeting, I tried again. Could not get it. I was literally on the floor of the living room, crying in frustration. I have never felt so lost in my life. I know. First world problem. I was frustrated and angry with myself and having a full-on nervous breakdown. It was one of the worst feelings that I have ever had. And after about a half hour of this, a person that I only sort of knew happened to walk in and ask me what was wrong. I told her I was going to fail intuitive calculus because I could not sort out what I was doing. Her response, and I will never forget this, was, "I'm in Calc 1. What do you need?" Quote. Not only did she completely straighten me out, she became one of my very best friends. We spent our 20s traveling and going on all kinds of crazy adventures. Our lives took us in different directions, but we still touch base almost every day. Whenever someone asks how we met, she tells them that she saved me from a calculus-induced nervous breakdown, yakking my guts out after a pinch of cherry skull. And whoever gave it to you knew that would happen, too. Falling in love with the first girl I had sex with and losing my scholarship trying to make her fall in love with me. Hopefully that's the most expensive mistake I'll ever make. Not making a move on the girl I loved because I wasn't good at reading the signs. Even when the signs were her sleeping with me in my bed multiple times. Which led to her giving up and moving on. Walking in on my roommate masturbating with Aladdin on the TV. Hey, he was just going to show you the world. Never had a friend like him this year. I spent months modeling my final project design in SolidWorks, and 2 weeks before the due date, the zip disk corrupted and I lost everything. I still feel myself begin to puke when I think about it. On the plus side, I have 3 copies of everything I ever do now, so I'll never experience that again. Being in RA and, on the first day of freshman arrival, having a student come bang on my door to find me to tell me she was just sexually assaulted in the room next to me. Getting my disability accommodations approved by the disability services offices. Then getting bitched at and told by a professor that I can't expect any accommodations from him this year. I went to the disability services office about it, and they said they couldn't do anything, as it was up to the individual professors whether to accommodate my disabilities. Seeing the first serious ex on campus after our last semester's breakup. Trying to pay for it. Teacher accidentally locked me in class when I fell asleep. Accidentally. The sinking realization that, while I was finally out of my hometown school environment, there were hard limits as to how much I was going to be able to reinvent myself in the new environment. I started right after Virginia Tech happened, and being the socially awkward quiet kid made me feel Worse, once I realized kids were being nice to me because they thought I was like that. Suicide attempt. My professor scheduled our midterm during the 2010 elections. This was after he consistently berated our generation for not voting. I had to skip lunch in my next class to actually vote. Damn. I know most polling hours vary by city or county, but usually they're open at least 12 hours or more. Must have been a long, brutal test. In 2009, shortly before graduation, going to the campus job fair, half the arena was empty, and not a single company that even bothered to set up a booth was actually hiring. Every recruiter was like, "We're on a hiring freeze right now, but hopefully it will be lifted soon. So keep us in mind." Last year of college, man, everything sucks.
That's it!